Good morning, guys. What's going on? It's the Money Talk Show with Dane, where we talk about all sorts of interesting topics having to do with money, particularly real estate and crypto. And we have an excellent real estate guest here today, our friend Berto. So this will be a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We are doing our absolute best to be the bridge between entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and the crypto world because we feel like crypto is the biggest opportunity over the next few years, and it's not even freaking close. But on today's show, we'll make sure that we go over what to do or what to consider doing when it's time to take those sweet crypto profits, where to go with them, why real estate can make a lot of sense for you guys. And so it'll be a lot of fun. But before we jump into that, Corey, take it away.
Yeah, so Corey Geary here, Crypto Millionaires with Corey Geary, where we are on a journey to bring at least 100 of our friends along with this crypto wealth creation journey that we're in the middle of right now, and to be able to, like Dane said, bring a community together to hopefully, create wealth via crypto and then preserve wealth via real estate. And so, like, me and Dane have started out in real estate and done pretty well for ourselves, and now transitioning to crypto, but we see the end of the movie going back to real estate. And that's why we're so blessed to have our good friend Cuthberto on today, because he is a beast when it comes to the real estate space. He's an operator of multi-million dollar projects. He's great at raising money. And so I think he'll be able to shine a little light on this topic today about what are we going to do when 2025 comes and we're exiting out of the marketplace. What do? We don't keep that in the bank, because we know that the government's just going to inflate the currency like they always do. And so we got to be smart with our money. Like I said, crypto is used for wealth creation and real estate's used for wealth preservation. So, man, Cuthberto, man, thank you so much for joining us today and blessing us with your presence. Won't you tell us a little about yourself?
Cool. I appreciate you guys, man. Good morning to everybody. I appreciate the invite and been looking forward to this since we spoke. Well, like you said, my name is Cuthberto. I am a full-blown operator. Been doing this for 23 years. This was a family business, so this was something that I completely kicked into. We got, the difference between my folks and myself was that they just brought more grind. And, that was really what they had. And it was up to me to kind of not only take on that legacy of grind, but understand the work ethic that they brought. And then it was my journey to understand like the legitimate finances and the education side of it. This is one of the reasons why we met in an education space. And like I said, my journey started years ago, dude, years ago. Fresh out of high school, I was a straight A student. I said, hey, I could have gone to college, but the reality is that school wasn't really for me. It was straight entrepreneur spirit, flat out, go out and get it. And like everybody who was in the thick of things, I lost everything in 2006, 7, and 8. And just like everybody else, whoever saw that, one of the things that kept us like being successful at this moment for those who went through that was the understanding that everything could end just like that. I'm not just talking about it slowed down. I'm talking about income ended. And there was things that we all could have done different. And that's what I've made it my literally my business purpose since 2008 till today, is to make sure that I do the things and put the things in place to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again to me and to my friends and to whoever I'm blessed to be around with. And I believe that I've achieved that through the understanding of the correct experiences in real estate. What I mean by correct is real estate is like the movie industry, the entertainment industry. The guy holding the mic at a movie set is in the movie industry, just like the director. So it's too broad. So
it is
what I like to talk to people about is when you do specific things in a certain way, you end up being able to achieve those objectives of being able to cover during a downside, like whatever it is that we're going through right now. If you were really operating at a high level, you were already anticipating something like this. You were already covering downside. You were already moving assets, liquidating, raising, doing what you had to do to get in the front. Just like you guys are on the razor's edge of crypto. I like to consider myself an operator who's been in the razor's edge for over a decade. Now, 9 years, my first 9 years, I was fresh like everybody else. So I believe it took me 9 years to truly get it. But since 2009 all the way here is really when I felt that I've reached that. A lot of my successes is for me personally since 2009. I can go back to my track record prior to that, but it is irrelevant to me because I lost it. But from 2009 on, I personally have bought over $100 million worth of real estate, in which 85% of that balance sheet belongs to me and my partner. So it's not just raising money, because I know people who can raise $400 million and they own only 5% of that, which is great. Volume still matters, and we can discuss that as we go about. But without really, I wish I had more time to really get into the details of it. But I think what I would want to do today is not only just explain from my point of view the roles of operators, because I believe in a just like when you guys reach this really high level, guys, of income, things change. And what I mean by things change, I'm not just talking about your lifestyle, and I'm not just talking about you go from this car to that car. I'm talking about your banker has to change, right? Whoever your consultants have to change. If you're still using your H&R Block CPA, then what I'm getting at is things evolve, right? Things evolve. And you have to have a high net worth CPA do stuff for you. You have to have a high net worth banker. And I'm not talking about the guy who gives you a loan. I'm talking about the guy who opens your checking account, the guy who gives you wire accesses. All of that becomes an evolution. And you get to see the actual playing field of those playing that abundant game. But what I'm getting at is that when you're really, really trying to go out there and deploy $50-100 million worth of capital into a direction, there's actually three roles, guys. Three roles that professional operators roll. The first one is a full-time money raiser, right? This individual right here is literally working like 12 hours a day just raising money. This person has no time to underwrite deals. This person has no time to administrate. His personality, how could he be taking you to a Laker game, to a Jazz game, this guy is out there fluffing, right? But a true, when you guys become aware, is this the person who I want to deal with? Possibly. The second role is a fund manager. Is somebody who is a manager and the administrator. This guy is more on the analytics, right? Obviously, the name alone is self-explanatory, right? A fund manager. You can already begin to see the engineer and the salesman type of difference between the money raiser and the fund manager. You could already begin to see, and they're both just as important. But the operator that I operate out of is I am the third operator, and that is the investment expert. Like, I understand real estate through and through. Just like most people who've been in doing something for more than, for at least 2 decades, like myself, and at a high performance level, I've pretty much seen just about every type of personality of a seller that exists, a realtor, a broker, whatever it is, the scenario, how to fix it, how to cover it. And I just believe that my strength lies in my underwriting, my ability to underwrite, my ability to see a deal and structure not just the deal. I know how to structure the deal for the exit, right? I know how to structure the capital, and I know how to structure the timeline to not only meet expectations, but in order to, to fulfill. Because one of the things you guys all have to look for in an operator is somebody who can keep their word, right? Who does what they say they're going to do. And later on, as we go on, I could discuss, and I'll take some questions from both of you guys, or from I can give you the roadmap on really the kind of resume that you're really looking for, the type of skills that you're really looking for, what it is, what are the telltales, because I can fluff it, but what are the telltales of what you're kind of looking for on somebody who you could, because the truth is, fellas, and ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth. we want to, all of us, we want to participate in our investments. Yes, we want to be passive. And before I describe that, I want to describe passive. How passive of an investor can we all be? Dude, you could be dead, right? John D. Rockefeller's been dead for 100 years and his estate made more money than all of us, right? So that's how passive you can be. But all of us, while we're alive and well, we want to participate in the decision-making of our investments, right? So since we want to participate in the decisions of our investments, we have to understand the roles we want to take on and who we want to partner with. Because unfortunately, there's really not a book out there. There's really not a course on how to partner with somebody doing this. So I'm going to not only describe the ability to identify, interview, and understand the type of operator that you guys want to look for. I'm also describing one of the craziest rules that and universal rule that I realized is that it's easier to find a spouse, which we already know how hard that is. It's easier to find a spouse than to find a business partner. Right?
I could agree with that.
That's the truth.
And because that is the effing lane that we're going into, like, we have to understand that we're partnering with this operator, right? So I'm open. I'll wait for your guys' lead, but then I could describe some of those things that you guys want to look for.
I think it'll be good. We'll do some questions from the audience a little bit, but I definitely want to touch on it because I know, Dane, we were discussing with some other particular Hexican, I won't mention any names, and he was talking about how he went to one of the gurus events and ended up giving him money because he was gonna, he was pitching the operator types. And this guru, everyone knows who he is. He's big, really big. Yeah. And now he still hasn't seen any results on his money, and he's, he's unable to get a hold of that operator because he's busy being the guru life, right? And so, these are the mistakes that we see happening.
That's such a common story. There's so many.
It is
that story.
100%.
Yeah. Right, because they're gurus. They have credibility because they're on stage all day long and they're on every podcast and they're all talking about how they raised billions of dollars, and then it's tough. It's really, really tough. So, but
let's do this. Let's go through just a few of the comments here. We'll welcome everybody in that's tuning in. And then
we'll touch on that.
Yeah, we've got lots of questions to go through. So you guys that are in the comments, we got a lot of you today. Make sure to post in the comments any questions that you want to ask Berto. Like he mentioned, he's been in the game for over 20 years. He's been through the ups. He's been through the downs. He's been able to position himself really well. In fact, one of the things that really impressed me about Berto is the last event that we went to that he was there, he presented, and he talked about positioning himself and his business and his investors early with the market changing. If you're unaware, the real estate market has changed pretty drastically over the last year. For a lot of people, it's been extremely painful, and I really appreciated Berto's foresight. So it's important to be in the game with somebody that's been in the game for a long time. We've got Funding Jim. What's up, Funding Jim? Appreciate you being here. Tin Top's here. What's up, Tin Top? Tin Top's here almost every single morning. Ryan's in our group, our crypto mastermind group. Ryan texted me yesterday and he's like, I'm gonna do my best to be there every single day moving forward. He was really impressed with our show yesterday. So appreciate you being here, Ryan. If you guys like what you hear on these shows and you want to talk about our group, how we're networking with guys like Berto, we've got guys like Ryan, or we've got guys that are big crypto guys. We're bringing those two worlds together. If you want to talk about what it might look like for you to be part of that group, check out the banner below. You could schedule a call to be able to chat with Corey and I. We vet everybody very thoroughly to make sure we have a very high caliber of individuals there. If you think you're one of those people, then make sure to book a call. We'd love to chat with you. Shamrocks is here. Alberto's here.
Oh, Alberto's in the group.
Alberto's in the group. Yep. Alberto's in the group.
Yep.
Frank makes a great point. Don't forget to share your spiritual badass, Berto.
That's right. For those, Frank's a great buddy of mine. Absolutely. And Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. He's like, I want you to connect with Corey. I'm like, dude, I just connected with him yesterday. That was so cool.
It was
That
so
was so
weird. He
cool.
put us in a
Yeah.
group chat, and it's like,
Yeah.
and you have a very unique name, Cuthberto, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that name before. And when he was referencing that group chat, and I was like, this, I bet you it's the same guy, real
It
estate
has to be,
mogul,
bro. It has to
Cuthberto.
be,
What are
bro.
the odds? And I'm like, is
Yeah,
this Cuthberto
yeah.
from Dan Costa's mastermind? And you're like, yeah, bro. I'm like,
Yeah, no, dude. And look at when all 4 of my kids were born, when I was married and I had to go to the civil court and all that. Everywhere I go, people who see names on an everyday basis. I'm talking about even the TSA people who read your ID.
yeah,
They're like, dude, I've never seen your name.
yeah,
So
it's
it's like,
unique.
yeah,
It's
I never seen your name, and I'm like,
unique.
wow. So I hope that means that I'm unique, but at the end of the day, dude, I'm still me. So,
Sure.
but I did want to answer something that Corey you said right now on your
Go for it.
on what it is you shared, right? One of the things you do have to identify from the person who you want to trust with your money, right? Because we're so used to doing the analysis of who we want to trust with our money is we start like making sure they're kind of more like us in rapport, just so we can anticipate and predict, characteristics. But that doesn't really work because we're all individuals. But one of the things you have to recognize is you have to kind of gauge them at the level of ID, of their personal ID, their self-identification, right? Yes, this guru that you said once identified him, meaning, and this is what I mean by identity, his entire bandwidth revolved around that practice of real estate guru, of real estate investing. The moment he becomes a guru, he ceases to be that. He is now just a guru, and now his bandwidth revolves around marketing, around exposure, around clientele. And so he went from being an A+ operator to being a D- operator, not because he's an evil person, not because he's dumb, because he shifted his self-identity. Listen, there's realtors in the group. I know because one of my good buddies, Frank, is Frank is badass in Chicago, right? A good realtor could get clients everywhere. He could be in line at the supermarket and he could flirt his way into a deal. What I mean by flirt is that he's a realtor at all time. That means everybody at every moment is a potential client, right? If you're not a realtor, you're in line, you can give 2 shits about who's in front of you. That's the level that I'm talking about. That when this guru, now I don't need to know who it is, but this guru, when he's banking and he's becoming rich off of his story of who he was. But I've seen it too many times. This is one of the reasons, guys, that I have all the credentials to be a trainer. I have all the credentials to go speak. I've been doing it for years. But the reason I haven't done it is because I am aware that the moment I shift hats, I cease to be the operator that people depend on.
Yeah. I love that.
That's a great point.
Wow.
That's a great point.
That's beautiful.
Guessing it was Grant Cardone. Name as well.
Hey,
Maybe.
What are you doing here, bro?
I don't know.
We will say no more.
Hey, let's I want to start with, let's try to start our best at the beginning, Cuthberto. So let's start with the identity that an investor may have. Like you talked about, there's various roles and positions, how involved somebody wants to be versus not involved. And so talk us through kind of what those positions look like as far as, let's talk about involvement. So anywhere from somebody saying, I want to be very passive to I want to be more involved. What does that look like usually? And what can people expect depending upon how involved they want to be?
That's a good question, right? I think the thing about private capital is that I could start the question's answered by this way, right? It's the operator, or he or she has to know how to structure capital. That sounds nice, right? It sounds like, okay, it's 20% down here. No. Okay, because private capital could be debt that has its own set of rules, could be equity which has its own set of rules. Right. And I'm just going to leave it at those two. But you could also structure debt to look like equity. You could also structure equity to look like debt. The reason I'm telling you these really simple formulas of capital structure is because if you can identify that, then you know how to slot an investor and their level of participation. Right now,
and really quick, talk about just at a very simple level. When you say there's debt versus equity, I think there's a lot of people here that may not know, like, hey, I have some money and I want to go get involved in the deal. I just give my money to somebody and that's it. What do you mean when you say a debt position in a project or an equity position? Explain that real simply.
Okay, so in real estate, even though there's debt everywhere else, debt tends to be leaned, right? And debt tends to be a beneficiary position, right? And a borrower, and there's no upside, unless it's specified in like something called like a share appreciation mortgage or something like that. But let's just keep it simple. The debt, one of the reasons a lot of people raise debt, especially over this last bull run that we just had in real estate, was because you don't give up upside, right? You don't give up ownership. Equity, you are in the upside of it. You are the owner. So that's the big. You're not an owner. You're just a beneficiary, and on equity, you're an owner. But for all those who know the movie Goodfellas, right? It's my favorite saying on when it comes to debt and equity, right? Debt has a monthly obligation, and debt is a F you pay me. Oh, you didn't make any money? F you pay me. Oh, you didn't fulfill on your end of the deal? F you pay me. Equity is we do not split profits until we make money. So there is an order of when you get paid too. So there's benefits on both ends. And for those who understand, you could, and I'll share this with you guys on another time, but there's like a way to use debt first, equity later, or equity first, debt later, all of these things, because you have to structure, and I'm gonna use what Frank is asking me to. Now you have to structure to create abundance. If you don't structure to create abundance, then you're not really knowing what you're doing. And every deal could look identical, and just the difference in the structure is the difference between it being successful or anybody losing their shirt. That's the truth.
Right. So as a quick example, I've got $1 million. I want to go place. And I say, Berto, I want to place this $1 million with you. I think you're the guy. And so I have two essentially. And once again, we'll just keep this at a very simple level. But I say, great, I've got this money. You say, Dane, you can either take a debt position if that's what you're if you feel like that's what's requisite for the project that you have at hand. And that would look like, hey, here's $100,000. I want to make 10% on my money annually, and you pay me a payment every single month to be able to do that. That's a debt position, correct?
That could also be an equity position, but again, I could confuse you. But before I could answer that, I wish that I ran into you at a network place and you tell me that conversation as we're having a cocktail in our hand, right? But it doesn't really work that way. There really is a process of understanding where you are and what it is that you want. Listen, just because you don't have an investment plan doesn't mean you don't have an investment plan, right? Like having an investment plan is having an investment plan, right? Because here it is, and I'll explain it to you like this. Like for instance, if you guys are not familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all that really is a human natured course to self-actualization. What that just means is that we reach a high level of being naturally if we take care of certain things. Our investment plan is natural in that way. If you're early on in your investment plan, I could almost bet the house that you're seeking income first. You want to make sure that income gets covered, that you have cash flow, right? And then you start and then let's just say, because that was one of the things that impressed me about your guys' presentation with crypto. You guys are tackling the income aspect of a growth asset, right? That's really what you guys are doing. You guys are creating mechanical pops to create the availability for income, right? So that is a process of income. So if I meet you whether you're seasoned or not. But I can tell by the words that you tell me, the language patterns, everything that you're telling me that you're still seeking income. That really upside and tax benefit has not really been the thing that you're really truly seeking. You're seeking. So for instance, when I raise money from doctors, the doctors don't give two shits if they get an extra $500 that month.
Sure.
They just like, I just want to make sure that I place this and I get this later, right? These are very good people to put into new development deals, right? Because there's a development doesn't kick any income to split, right? So there's income, then there's growth, right? We naturally go into growth. And then finally, the best investments after you've covered those nuts, right? After you've made sure that you fulfilled. It's almost like the people who are the wealthiest or generations, the reason that they act different is because they fulfilled so many of their needs through time. They almost seem like minimalism, like they're minimalist, right? Like they don't need to drive a fancy car because they've already had that. They don't need to go. What I'm getting at is that's the organic way of fulfilling those needs. When you fulfill income, and yes, we all like to make a little extra bank, but to me, truly to make passive income, I have a rule to it. If I can't pay you weekly, then if you get paid once a month and you think that's income, no, I'll call that commission. But if you truly structure your life to get income, you better be able to pay yourself weekly. This is just an example. Mm-hmm. Then there's growth, where the growth normally has the highest yields of return. Crypto is the perfect example of growth, of a growth asset. And finally, it's lifestyle assets. Listen, I want to go buy myself a boutique luxury hotel on the sand somewhere. And I want to go there a few months a year and be the gardener that nobody knows owns it. Right? That's a lifestyle investment. Don't get it twisted. I'm still going to make bank owning that shit. But it's a lifestyle. Many people have lifestyle. You look at the guy, I forgot his name, the dude from Virgin Airlines. It's all lifestyle investments, right?
Richard Branson.
Yeah. Richard Branson, forgive me. I'm getting older and forgetting everybody's names. So, Dane, that would be the way. That was the only way that I could really answer your question, right?
So those are the three things. When you're consulting with somebody, you're like, hey, let's figure out what you're actually after.
Where you're at.
Those are the three things.
And then many people, and I don't mean to put crypto on under the magnifying glass. People who go into crypto know that they have to wait these 3 years, bro. They know they have to wait. They know they have to wait it out. A lot of them exit early because they haven't fulfilled their income nut yet. Agreed. Right? They don't know it. They don't know it. They're suffocating like oxygen, and they're exiting positions way too early. But the reason is because they have not fulfilled their income. And this is why people go into real estate thinking that, oh, it's going to be cash flow. I'm going to come out and say it right away, guys. Real estate should be a growth only, because the more income you make, the more management overhead you have to make that bitch perform. You should, your income that you make, if you understand the psychology of how this whole thing works, your income should only be to break even, to make sure that lights are on, operation keeps going. But income, you have to really have a large volume of real estate to truly feel that you're making income from real estate. Everything else should be structured. Yeah, should be structured to break even and benefit from the growth volume. You make more money owning $100 million worth of real estate through a simple appreciation, tax benefit, and principal reduction that the tenant pays. You make more money doing that. Imagine your position is $10 million on $100 million worth of real estate. It's $100 million worth of real estate that's compounding, not your 10 million, right? So that is how
massive
I look at real estate, right? It's volume that calls the shot, not doors. Dude, I have sold 100-unit apartments to go build luxury, 15 or 17 luxury, who kick the same amount of, who are worth the exact same amount as the 100, and that kick gross the same amount as the 100. So why do I want 100? Why do I want to deal with that? So,
I think this is so important. So for those of you guys that are listening, Berto just nailed one of the most critical things. I want to make sure that you do not miss
Hell
this.
yeah, he did. I know you're going to go to.
Common fallacy in real estate where guys want to talk about, oh, I have this many doors and we produce this much cash flow. You've got to have a massive amount of doors before the portfolio cash flows, where it even starts to get interesting. And in my experience, it's like 100+ doors before it even starts to get interesting.
And that's even like 100 doors.
Yeah.
It don't much for me. Like, I'm not getting excited on the cash flow from 100 doors. I might get excited from some appreciation, some tax benefits from that. But yeah.
And this is where I think that real estate and crypto can be so cool, because like Corey said, real estate can be such a good way to be able to preserve capital. So everybody's after high growth, and crypto and real estate, like Berto's saying, you can go and take $1 million or 10 million or whatever it is you want to plunk down into real estate. And that portion of the pie that you own, you could have 10 million in on $100 million asset. It's the 100 million that's compounding though. And so you can get extremely wealthy and preserve cash flow, but you got to be patient with it when it comes to real estate.
Absolutely. And that's a good point. That's a good point to make of emphasis, right? Because right now you mentioned it, right? Like a lot of people, a lot of fund managers, right? Or a lot of people who are structuring these deals and having money raisers go out and get, right? Like, one of the number one things that people have to understand, and this is from my experience of sitting with many people across, looking at them face to face and having a discussion. After I pay them back their money, because here's the difference. People could have raised money, but have they been in multiple? I have 1031 exchanges. Like, so I have done multiple cycles, and this is where I'm getting at with this. Once you have a long projection, right? A long projection of saying, like, we're going to buy a deal that we're going to exchange. I could reverse engineer my way all the way from the reverse exchange. But when it comes to the investor, they don't care about that. They don't care how smart you are there. They care more about return of their investment than return on investment. Meaning they can give two shits if it's a 15% yield or it's a 6% yield. They want their capital preserved. And one of the things you have to do is make sure that you return their capital intact. Yes, once they understand that you are a high integrity individual of high stewardship, then yes, they are looking forward to making the compound wealth, right? But in the beginning, in the first deal that they're always with you, understand that the number one thing that matters to all of us, myself included, is that my capital that I invested gets returned intact. Right. So he or she, an operator who doesn't understand that, should already be, if he's sweet talking you, he or she is sweet talking you about how high the yield is, instead of creating an investment plan that stacks yields through good, stable assets, and that stacks yields. And I can get into like those banking terms later on, but just understand that you have to have an operator who you partner with, because I'm calling it partnering, right? Who you partner with, who understands that capital protection and the preservation of is the highest and most important thing to do in the front end of the relationship.
I like that. Absolutely. Let's go through a few of the questions here. This has been excellent, Berto, and I'd like this has been great. So if you guys aren't aware, and in my opinion, I'm sure Corey feels similarly, but Berto is a very high level operator, and you can see when it comes to trying to figure out who to place capital with, it's much more of an interview and a consultation to be able to figure out if, like Berto said, it can be harder to find somebody to place your money with than finding a spouse. And so it's very important.
At least the spouse, you have sex. with money partners, you don't have, it's just money.
It's just money, man.
Right. So let's get into just a few of these. You can teach or operate, hard to do both well at the top. Absolutely. I like that. Frank says, Berto, maybe share how you lead a well-rounded family life with all of your successes too. Let's in fact hold me accountable. I want to get into that in like the last 5 minutes when we wrap up.
That could be good. Yeah,
that's great. This is a great question. So Doc Lover says, I made a small start in real estate recently. I've seen lenders look down on my crypto source of funds alternative. I need to show sources from other savings for the mortgage. Do you guys think that most lenders are still afraid of crypto being a high risk of money laundering and shy away from lending to us in the future, or will this change when the bull market? With the bull market,
will it change the bull market some?
I have an answer for that one. I have an answer.
Yeah, go ahead, Berto.
Okay, so that's a great point. You guys are sitting in a defensive position constantly for having crypto, but I would think here's another thing. Now I'm going to describe another personality trait or characteristic trait that a good operator has to do. A good operator has to know how to has to know how to work with institutional lenders. Like for me personally, I consider myself a professional borrower. I could make any commercial committee want to lend with me. And the reason I can do it is because maybe the difference, now I may be wrong, but depending on the lender that you're dealing with, that shouldn't be the lender that you're really seeking out. You should be working with commercial lenders who would appreciate your balance sheet, because your crypto holdings, if placed in a balance sheet, right, actually have a better result with a lender who understands your balance sheet than somebody who's kind of nitpicking at your transactions in your savings account and wondered why you zelled your friend $500, right? Like that, maybe that's not who you should be working with. Now, I could be wrong, and I don't mean to like completely emphasize that this person went to Wells Fargo. I'm not saying that, but you have to understand these institutional lenders that are lenders in the debt side, they operate like institutional equity firms in which they make decisions on a table, and they want them, and they look at you, the operator, as the source and the horse that they're betting on. But the number one thing that sweet talks them, if they're going to give you a $5 million loan, they would love to know that you have at least $5 million in assets. And the best way, and they're not going to nitpick and be like, oh, the majority of their assets comes from crypto. They don't care about that.
Right.
They don't care about that. They want to see a well-prepared balance sheet.
Yep.
And if they see a balance sheet, and that's why I borrow, that's why I'm primarily the borrower for my investors, because my balance sheet does the talking. However, my track record, I literally took that to heart to make myself the best presented borrower, period. And so that's what I made myself, simply because finance is my background, and I was a lender in my original years. So I made it a point to be the best. So when I submit that committee, what I mean by committee is that the group of vice presidents who make a decision on who they're lending, when they see my name, that's who they want to lend. So that took time, but I just wanted to emphasize to people who feel shit on, talk shit, frowned upon with their crypto holdings, is you have to go to a different lending institution who can appreciate your balance sheet, because that's where your crypto speaks the highest.
Absolutely. And I think this may be one of the places that Doc Lover is running into. So if you're going and you're buying smaller properties, Berto's talking about commercial lenders. Getting a commercial loan is very different than getting a loan on a smaller property. And this is where, in my experience and in my opinion, buying duplexes or single families, triplexes, fourplexes, all of that stuff is going to be with a traditional lender. And that's where it can be very complicated. Like Berto said, they're worried about you zelling $500 to your friend and wanting to spot check everything. And it could be a nightmare. The game changes drastically when you move up to larger commercial properties, so that the lending, they can find a way to make your deal work if you're a good operator and you have a good deal, rather than saying, Matt, we just take things in this guideline and that's all we do. And so I can tell you from, once again, from my experience, I will never own another single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex ever again because it's a nightmare to deal with all this stuff. I would much rather take my money and put it with somebody like Berto so that I don't need to deal with all the headache. I can put my money with the professionals that already have it figured out. And then, like Berto said, I don't need to worry about, oh, my balances are largely in crypto. They can take care of that for me because Berto knows how to operate and what to do.
That's right.
Love it.
That's right. And I do want to say this, though. I do want to say this. One of the key secrets of my success was the acquisition of a bunch of SFRs, duplexes, and so forth. But you don't finance them individually. You pool them. You create portfolios, right? You create portfolios, and sometimes those a 30-door portfolio. Speaking of doors, could if structured right. Remember, I told you I'm a structurer. If structured right, will outperform a 30-door multi. But it's got to be structured right. And the financing is the same. It is commercial. But the commercial doesn't want to buy one SFR. But if you say, can you do one commercial loan to do these 20? They'll be like, absolutely. So for those who want to, who understand that apartments or commercial properties could be high saturation, if your objective is still to deploy, understand that a good operator knows how to build out a portfolio, knows the ingredients that when combined become a single economic unit and could outperform anything. Remember, a good commercial property is short and few in between, but you got to be ready to buy it when the good one comes. Everything else could be inflated. During that process, you want your money to be working. And we can go out and acquire smaller assets strategically with the right components. Maybe one is an income-only asset that doesn't appreciate. But then you got one that doesn't cash flow that fully appreciates. And then you got a foundational asset that the point is that you can build it out and financing, because here's the other thing you guys want to look for in an investor is, does he have the capacity of deal flow? Could this person deploy like clockwork? Because that's what you want. You want your money moving. And the building of a portfolio of SFRs, duplexes, and so forth can come in handy in the gaps between the big deals that really make the difference.
I like that. That's money. This has been a great stream. So appreciate you, Berto. This has been great. Berto, love to be that gardener that owns the hotel.
Absolutely. Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. I'm just clipping away. In these beauties. Now, I just came from the Dominican Republic, and they offered me that boutique luxury hotel for 1.5.
Really?
Literally, they offered it to me personally. They offered it to me, and I was just following the gardener around like I bet he thought I was stalking him. Like, this is what I'm gonna look like. Like, I'm gonna be wearing cargo shorts and sandals, and like this is what I am going to look like. But yeah,
this is great.
So let's do this, Berto. You've done an excellent job in outlining a lot of characteristics to consider when getting into real estate. If I want you to give us, if you can, I know we're going to do a massive oversimplification here, but I think this is important. So if I'm somebody that's got some money and I want to work with an operator like you or somebody else, and I'm trying to get down to the nitty gritty of like, hey, is this somebody that I should consider working with? Give me like 5 or 3, or it doesn't, the number is less important, but give me like the nitty gritty bullet points of your like, hey, I would want to figure out A, B, C, and D to be able to do a quick like, no, this isn't going to work, or yes, there's more digging into this person that I should consider.
I think if you're talking about a high number, which you guys in your field are going to have fucking.
What's a high number? When you say high number?
No, I think in the millions, dude. In the millions. Yeah, in the millions.
Fair.
You want to work with somebody who has a track record, who has a track record of growth, who has a track record in who understands, who's even willing to connect you with their prior investors so they can give you some feedback if you're like that, right? If you're like me, I'm a snitch on Yelp, bro. Like if the food was shitty, I'm snitching. right? Like, yeah, that's just like me being, that's just me being a brat, right? But for instance, Frank mentioned, or somebody mentioned, it was about, are they divorced? Do they have gambling addictions, right? Like, have they, you obviously, we know the regulars. Have they committed financial fraud? Are they this? Do they have warrants for their arrest? You want to know all this,
Right.
right?
They have
And they only,
addictions.
yeah, they have and listen, I have an addictive personality, right? I have a strong addictive personality. That's probably why I'm addicted to self-improvement, which is
Yep.
fucking a real addiction for anybody who knows who knows addictions. That's an addiction, right? And where I met Frank, I learned how to appreciate and Frank knows this. Frank knows the old saying that we say to ourselves: just because I want to get better doesn't mean what I have now is worse, right? Like that, that's just a way. That's like the AA for the self-improvement junkie, right? Like, hey, why do I want to keep going to the next thing and unappreciate what I have? Because that creates a dilemma. But anyways, I mentioned earlier, the first one I just said right now, then just make sure that they don't have gambling addictions, because you don't want them gambling with your money.
No.
If you have one, fine, great, but you don't want a person I'm not a gambler. That's why I'm so committed to it, because I'm not a gambler. I probably have never gambled more than $1,000 in my life, and I think that $1,000 is just from the multiple visits to Vegas that I only do to go eat and watch shows. Right? I sit there and I'm like, I am getting nothing. There's no blood flowing here watching my money go away. Right? And I know that people get a rush. Now, I'm probably only saying this because my mother was an addictive gambler. That's probably why I'm so to the opposite side. But I mentioned things in their personality traits, right? Like, are they their divorces or their family, the way they are with their family is a great indicator of their integrity, right? Like, I've been with my business partner for 14 years. I've been with my wife for 24, right? Like, that speaks volumes of what it means to have integrity in a relationship, right? The track record that you're looking for, right? The way I mentioned earlier, which I know it's not like I gave you guys a hack, like nobody really ever brings up this whole notion about who they are and who they show up as every day and how they see themselves. Are they trainers now who left their gold mine to fulfill? Good for them. But, are they still, oh no, but I have a staff who does that. Well, like, you still want to be able to call me or call the operator and make sure that you're able to have those relationships. And number two is the other one part is that you want to identify what their role is. And I do believe the most important role is the investment expert. Specifically, if you're targeting an asset like real estate, you need to know. I was just in a convention with fund managers on Thursday in Salt Lake City, Utah. And the number one thing that I saw that nobody could do is underwrite. And that's why I brought up the word under. They do not know a deal. And we're not talking about the mean underwriter from your Fannie and Freddie Mac FHA loan. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about underwriting the entire holistic deal, the journey. Oh, this is going to be a 10-year hold. All right, what can you explain how this whole 10 years is going to play out? How and why? Like, what's it going to do? If you can't underwrite that, then you're kind of just guessing and playing ad hoc. That's why it's very important that you have a track record. There's so many other things, man. But I'll do this. I can, if you want, I can write it out, at least a couple of bullet points. And no, I'm not going to use Chat GPT to give me. Please write me 10 things to look in a fund manager, because it'll give it to me in 1 second. And if you, but I think I want to give you guys, through personal experience, personal hacks, right? Personal things that you want to see that I've learned have not only benefited me, but it's the feedback I get from my investors. My investors, after a long run, like, I like to survey my investors and say, what is your ideal situation, what you want to know, right? And again, it really is based on you too, because you're also partnering with them, and that person needs to know where you are. You're just as you should feel just as qualified for them as them for you. And that's what I mean about understanding where you are in your life. You're like, hey, I want to make 600 grand a month in cash flow. Great. Right. And I don't care about having a tax bill. That's not me. Like after a while, I'm good with what I got monthly, and I just would love my money to keep working. But that's me. So I guess I guess that could cover it.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, and absolutely,
cool.
if we want to put together a document, we can absolutely circulate that. That would be really helpful. Thank you for offering that. That's great.
Yeah, no doubt. So,
we need to wrap up here pretty quick.
I know.
Do you have any insights on this one, Berto? Is it better to own crypto via a company and move it into real estate with the company owning the real estate, or better as an individual?
Absolutely not. You want to create a holding company for your real estate that does business with nobody. So you want to own a holding company, and then underneath you want to own multiple companies that own multiple pieces of real estate, right? Why? Because those LLCs or companies that are the owners of the assets, those are doing business in a way with the tenant. That means that if there's a lawsuit, that's who gets sued. Your holding company does business with nobody, just collects.
Correct.
The money flows up into that, and that's where you store it. That's where you have it. You don't own any real estate under that holding company. Understand what I'm getting at? This is a holding company that owns the multiple companies that own the real estate.
Yep.
That has to be separate from your crypto.
True asset protection, right?
There's an argument to be made that can my crypto be in my holding company because, and I would say no, just make it a different company. Just make your holdings a different company, because a good tax strategist can tell you the benefits of self-dealing from one company to the other, as long as you stay in the right square. But for instance, if one company makes too much money and you need to take losses, you can have a management fee from one company to the other. But this is all legal. This is all legal. This is asset protection, right? And here's the last and not least, if your operator is not a master, fuck this understanding. I'm talking about a master at asset protection and compliance, then I don't know what to tell you. Because real estate is one of the most prevalent ways of asset protection. So forgive my cussing. Yeah. I'm kind of a sailor sometimes.
You're good, man. You're passionate
about what you do, though. We appreciate that. Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
End us off with this, and then also the people have spoken. Man, they want to. Where is it? They want.
Yeah, we're gonna at the end. You need to steal your stuff.
Yeah. How can we get a hold of Berto? So talk about how you do all of this with your family first, and then people want to for sure know how to get in touch with you. And once again, you guys, we have members just like Berto. In fact, we're working on Berto to get on our group too. But if you want access to this caliber of individuals that know how to operate, know what they're doing, you'll find a lot of the time in crypto, some guy went and bought crypto at the right time, and they, frankly, a lot of time people just got lucky, and good for them. You know, sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart, right? But a lot of the time, these guys haven't done anything out of getting lucky a few times in crypto. They haven't done a lot outside of like having some massive appreciation. And so once again, no shade to those guys, but it's very important to find who you spend your time with. And for me and Corey both, we want to make sure we spend our time with people, they're movers and shakers that have done things in their own right in their lives, and build those types of relationships. We have those in the group. So make sure you go schedule a call. We'd love to chat with you. But go ahead, Berto. Yeah, share how you lead a well-rounded family life with all of your success.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys. My business partner and I are both very high value when it comes to family and our kids. Like I mentioned earlier, he's been my business partner, basically my work wife, right? For 14 years, and we're great. Now, he had tragedy just recently happened to him. He actually lost his wife due to cancer. He's our age, guys. It's not like he's 65. No, He's our age, man. But in regard, but and he's coming through from that. We're like, again, we're both very high spiritual minded individuals. And when I mean spiritual, guys, don't confuse the beard. I don't have long hair. I'm not long haired spiritual guy. When I talk spirituality, guys, even everything that I said today, I believe most of my words that come out of my mouth have a spiritual twist to it, right? Some I can get cuckoo and get really really down into some stuff, but what I mean spirituality, guys, is personal power. Is my ability to what I'm able to control, what I'm able to take to do. So I'm a very high-minded spiritual person, the way Frank mentioned it, right? But it has to do with personal power. I take that and I gain that with my family, right? Like I bring those principles into my family. I have my wife of 24 years. My oldest son is, he's in film school. My daughter's in dentist school. My 16-year-old, he's great, and my youngest son. So I have the three boys and the girl, but I know how to just be pops at home. I'm not Cuthberto, some real estate guy. They don't give two shits about that. I'm just dad who needs to take out the
Right.
trash, right? I learned how to not be a high level individual of work at home. It doesn't work. And 24 years is an indicator, at least, that I'm doing that part right. That I'm just dad, that I get in my little SUV with, my wife's SUV, and we drive to Disney. Like it's, and yeah, I'm still the dad complaining about the churro. That doesn't change. But I make it a point, similar to that who recognized the whole gardener thing. Um, the same reason that makes me kind of want to be a gardener, because sometimes the getting outside of my ego and who I am at in this operator sense, how I'm appreciated and so forth, that's where I kind of find the biggest joy. Similar, like, hey, nobody needs to know I'm the owner of this luxury hotel. Like, it's like there's something for me. And this is not for everybody. It's just the road and the journey that I've taken. And it's been my family who's taught me how to do that. It's been my family who's taught me how to say, hey, listen, over there, not here, buddy. And I guess I don't know if that was the direction of the question, Frank, but I do want to mention, and me and Frank have had deep conversations. I mean, Frank's an author. Frank knows how to make you find your soulmate if you don't know that, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that question, because me and him have had deep talks over the years on the importance of that. So kudos to Frank for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Excellent question. Well, Berto, go ahead and share, if you're willing. How do people find you? How do they get a hold of you? Interact with you? They'd love to.
Absolutely. Listen, if you guys can put listen, I just have two ways of getting on, dude. It's my cell phone and my email. And my email is the simplest thing ever. It's my name at Gmail. I have my other business ones, but there's that. Listen, Cuthberto Ramos.
Is it your full name, Cuthberto Ramos?
Cuthberto Ramos. Yeah, Cuthberto Ramos at Gmail. And my cell phone number is area code 909, if you guys can put it, 909-997-1676. 909-997-1676. I love texts. Like, if you can text me, boom, even better. I'm going to jump on another call in about an hour, but my mornings are pretty busy. So please don't think that I'm ghosting you. And I would love to connect. I'll share anything. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to sharing. This is kind of what I do. And if you guys, I would prefer the following out of due respect. If you are interested in placing, please talk to Dane and Corey first, right? Let them know first. And then if it's a fit, I'm game to have a conversation. But because I found it in this avenue, I've been doing this long enough to be like, hey, listen, talk to the guys first and we'll figure something out. That way it's all in integrity and it's see-through.
We appreciate you, man. That's a big freaking deal. Most of the guys that come on, they don't want to share their email or cell phone. So Berto just gave you guys all the goods. We appreciate
I spilled, bro. I spilled some beans, man. And I'm going to make a bet. I'm going to make a bet that some of the stuff I said, even though it was caught, you're going to catch it. Like you're going to catch it a little bit more down the line. I'm known for that. I'm known for getting a call 30 days later and people being like, dude, I finally got what it is that you said. Right. So,
Very cool.
I know how I speak. I can speak what sounds in riddles. So
they want you on more, man. We'd love to have you back if you're willing.
I'll be down. I mean, if you guys are down, I don't know. Like I said, I'm game if you guys are, but it's.
I think we could have a great conversation. We could have a great conversation in the future, back to more of the spirituality stuff and life, by how the universe is intended for us to live. Like, I've been on that journey for the last year and a half. A great book for you guys to read, I'm sure you've heard of it, Cuthberto, is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which really kind of teaches you and taps into how to follow the journey the universe has in store for you and not push against what the universe wants for you. Even though the universe might be putting you in an uncomfortable direction, you want to follow the universe's insights. And so it's just I bet we could have a great conversation just on that right there. We could probably go really deep.
We'll either get half the people. We'll go so nuts. We'll get half the people who log off, or they're just ain't.
We'll sprinkle some crypto in there.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Hex. We'll talk about some price performance. We'll talk about Hedron and Icosa, and we'll get them to stay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, guys. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the time. I know we went over. And
absolutely.
I hope it was good.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yep. Cool, guys. We'll talk to you later.